shit. That's what I'm talking about. Wait.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Strategic Storytelling, the art and science of brand narratives, a special 5-part strategic storytelling pulse check series brought to you by Enrollify and Element 451. I'm Maria Kuntz, a strategic marketing communications leader with over 15 years of experience advancing institutional reputations and access to higher education. Join me for conversations with seasoned leaders to explore why every message should be rooted in strategy, how to build and lead a storytelling-focused team, the role of AI in enhancing narratives, multicultural storytelling for authentic connections, and the synergy between creative and storytelling strategies. Our goal is to inspire you to uncover and amplify the most impactful messages, doing more with less by adopting a strategic, streamlined approach to content creation. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to Strategic Storytelling, the art and science of brand narratives, where we explore storytelling and strategic communications in higher education. I'm your host, Maria Kuntz, and today I'm excited to welcome Anna McBrayer, Chief Marketing Officer at Fort Lewis College. Anna, you're leading transformative efforts in stakeholder engagement to align brand storytelling with institutional priorities, and you're reshaping marketing strategies into meaningful narratives that resonate with students, faculty, staff, and beyond. So excited to have you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, let's just jump right in. And, you really caught my attention talking about the stakeholder engagement process that you're doing around storytelling and brand development. So can you just talk to us about how did you approach involving your cabinet and other leaders in this process? And what were some of the key outcomes?
So I think to start with, a lot of marketing, especially lean marketing teams, feel like they run on a hamster wheel. And they often feel like they're reactive to requests that are coming in and the demand is high. And we want to, or I would like to move into more of a proactive storytelling. So as opposed to just trying to check the boxes and get the stories out, I'd like to be more strategic in how we approach storytelling. And that starts with just being able to prioritize things, aligning the storytelling with the strategic directives of the institution, and just accountability. So having leaders be in the same room and understand the stories that are coming from different divisions allows some accountability and helps the whole team, the institution, recognize that we can prioritize stuff and make a bigger impact.
Well, I know you met with your board around the holiday kind of winter transition. Can you tell me, what were those conversations like? What were the moments of realization people had?
My realization when the demands of an entire institution from a centralized marketing department, leading up to graduation, the end of the semester, become heavy and hard to meet the demands. But I think that there's an opportunity there, right, to really collaborate with stakeholders and leadership in a number of conversations I started having with folks across campus, VPs, and at the cabinet level. People want to tell the stories. Marcom wants to help do that. Mm-hmm. And I think recognizing that there's an opportunity here to put a little more intentionality and planning behind that would allow us to do a better job and to be intentional and strategic about what we're doing. So started with some conversations with a number of different stakeholders. So was reaching out to people who were champions of marketing, who understand the brilliance and impact that strategic storytelling can have, and started building a bit of support behind it. From there, I was finding that there was developing excitement around not just addressing it, but being a part of the conversation and understanding the why, and then having a chance to have a seat at the table to really develop that.
Yeah, people like to be included. They want to know why. And then I think it's great that you brought in stakeholders who could build that excitement and be your allies. So let's change a little bit and talk about, the need for creativity in storytelling while still assuring alignment to, your college's strategic goals. You come from a creative background, and I'd love to hear how you balance those two.
We're at a unique place at the institution at Fort Lewis College where we have just released a new strategic plan. So it aligns with the need to really dial in our storytelling. And creativity is what a marketing department does. We can develop that stuff. But understanding really the strategic plan and aligning everything with the strategic plan gives us some guidance and some guardrails, right? And so that can't happen without some intentionality and some planning ahead of time, building stakeholders across campus, interest, and really developing their skin in the game of strategic storytelling and how it can help the institution as a whole. And so always bringing in the right people and then also developing some planning and intentionality and always having that guiding light of connecting the line between what we're doing creatively and the content that we're creating, directing that, connecting it back to the strategic plan allows us to not only prioritize the work, but allows us some guardrails within the creativity to approach that storytelling and that brand building through our mission and our strategic direction in effective ways.
And I think also answer, why are you choosing a certain story? Why that one over 100 other options? And I love you use the metaphor of a guiding light, something to keep our eyes on and know that we're moving in that direction. So your team focuses on student-driven storytelling. I know you mentioned that you have students who work really closely as part of your team. Tell us how working directly with interns and students informs your storytelling strategy.
So our intern team is just, not only are they rock stars, but they are the audience in a lot of places. And they have direct lines to their parents, who are also a pretty significant audience. And I want to recognize that there's a number of audiences. There are community members, there are donors, there's a number of different audiences. But when we talk about enrollment, and I think this is what was important with the stakeholder engagement, was we tried to dial in some context. So let's talk, there's lots of impacts for strategic storytelling and brand building and ripple effects to that. But let's dial in who the actual audience we're trying to hit with engagement and with the goals of reaching enrollment goals, setting and reaching enrollment goals. So when you have a student who's looking at a college, trying to figure out if this is where they want to be, what better voice than one of their peers? And so, having the marketing, we can say the things, right? What our students do, what our faculty do, what our institution stands for. But when it can be demonstrated from an authentic student perspective, that is sort of the proof, right? That you've delivered on what you said you would do. And so having an intern team is instrumental in that. So not only are you getting some of that developing content from their actual experience, right? As a student, they know what's trending. They know what their peers are asking for. They know what they're saying. So they've got that really close touch to, especially with social media being such an instrumental piece and tool for marketing teams. You can tell when it's an ad and when it's an authentic representation of what the experience is like. And so that having an intern team, not only if they've got the skill set and the expertise to produce the materials, they actually have a unique perspective on what it feels like as a student, but also how to tell that story in a way that's engaging to their peers and themselves as an audience. So
they're like your always on focus group. They're there.
Yes.
So, we also talked about storytelling beyond words. And I'd love to hear, how Fort Lewis is leveraging visuals, sound, emotion, different mediums to connect with audiences.
Well, humans are built for narrative. I mean, it's prehistory, it was done, communication and was done with storytelling. And I love this question, Maria, because I think back of when I was in elementary school. I mean, everybody remembers the ABC song, or like how you remembered your money, right? Like what different coins amounted to different amounts, And so what happens with that is that you're engaging your brain in multiple reception points, right? There's audio, there's usually movement, dance, there's some, there's sound, there is, speech, there's the idea and the theme too. There's all of these things that are basically driving home the knowledge, right? And so I think we need to approach our unique, our strategic storytelling, layering all those pieces of how we receive a story. And a really important one is driving emotion, right? So story arc in terms of, not just conveying what happens, this happens, but really saying, what's the angst or what's the excitement? What's the emotion behind, the person who's in the video or in the written story? Like what is to convey some of that emotion is to connect with that audience in an even deeper way.
And I think for many teams, you talked about video, but you also mentioned the written word. And I think academia is really built and structured around demonstrating knowledge, writing papers, research. And there are many ways to demonstrate knowledge. And I believe that there are a lot of communications team who anchor around the written word and story, and just how important it is to lean into other mediums.
So I started out as a layout designer, graphic designer. And there was a time when I was art director for our magazine, which was a comprehensive magazine, not just an alumni magazine, but it was really, we leveraged it in a lot of different ways. And so it was really broad in its approach and storytelling. But when I started the intern team initially, which was about 10 years ago, when I was working on the magazine, mentoring those students to say, okay, look, here is our visual story, right? When someone looks at it, they might enter the story by the photo. They might enter the story by the caption. They might enter the story by the title or the subhead, or they might look at the pull quotes. And everybody's different in what's going to draw their attention in. And it's no different with any kind of strategic storytelling. Something is going to resonate. You hear people say, I'm a visual learner. I'm an audio learner. And so people learn in different ways. And if you provide a number of different ways for people to engage and enter into, consuming the story, you're really, all those pieces are selling someone on the story, on the importance of the story, right? And so you have all these opportunities to kind of pitch it through sound and through visuals, through the emotion, through the written word, through the voice, the testimonials. Those are all ways to engage people. So yes, the written word has, I don't want to downplay that because there's such value behind, we're learning with SEO and keyword search and these kinds of things that can really leverage the story and amplify it. But when you can also build on that written story and sort of the technical functionality of how these stories show up online with visual and audio, you're creating a deeper narrative that people are going to remember and engage with.
Absolutely. And those naturally live in different places, or maybe not naturally, but, I think a lot about the fact that YouTube is the, number 2 search engine site on the internet. And so what does that mean about how we're telling our brand and how our brand lives in these other places? Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you're sharing visual content, it's important to have a strategy behind that and be thinking about these dynamic stories.
Sure. And with all the different media that are out there, really being intentional and planning that when you've got a great story, how are you going to amplify it, right? And how you tell a story on a news site or how you pitch it to the media for earned media, how you present it in social media, across Instagram. It's even nuanced within those different platforms for not only the way people consume that content in those different media forms, but the audience that tends to gravitate towards those,
Absolutely.
right? And so you have one story, and if you're thinking about it and you're intentional from the get-go and you're building a broad foundation of all the different pieces of it, you can slice and dice that story half a dozen places, half a dozen ways, and amplify it across multiple channels with different audience segments.
Yeah,
And
the same story told many ways, different mediums, different lengths for the right audience at the right moment.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
And, honestly, those different pieces allow your campus stakeholders to tell it on their own, in their own circles too. It gives them some pieces to work with, right? So it's not just, okay, here's the story, here, distribute it. But
Right.
they might need to take pieces of it and put it into an email, or they might need to build content and engagement on their own social platforms. But when you're packaging that stuff in all of those different ways, then you've got some pieces to puzzle together and amplify the story.
So, Anna, you mentioned educating your cabinet and leadership team on audience specific storytelling and prioritization. So, what strategies have worked to help them understand the difference between audiences and how storytelling can serve them?
Well, first starting with your stakeholders, getting buy-in across campus was significant. And there was some planning going up to the workshop that we were going to do. And part of that is just pulling in expertise, right? So when we talk about enrollment priorities, I don't need to dictate that. I'm going to pull in my VP of enrollment and have her present that information, because she can present it from her voice and her team, represent her team in a way that is going to be more in-depth and more valuable to VPs and the cabinet in general. Enlisting my own internal team. Hey, this is an opportunity for us to interface with our campus leadership, really show the value and our strategic thought processes and what we bring to the table beyond just production output. And then just being organized. So that's where it kind of started, right? Is coming and making sure you've got multiple voices, not just Marcom. Not only building that stakeholder buy-in before, so there's a handful of people knowing you've had conversations with them before you sit down into the cabinet meeting, but you've also pulled some of those people into their unique expertise and some of the strategic goals that they have in their department that can be affected by this. So then we would provided some context. So the format of the workshop was to provide some context. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're not doing. Here's what we're doing. Let's think about, we're thinking about recruiting. We're thinking about within these constraints of the strategic goals for enrollment and our admission team. We provided some background knowledge of what Gen Z and Gen Alpha are asking for and requiring of higher ed, and just general trends of how they communicate and how they like to interface with institutions. And then provided some context and definitions around some of the marketing terms. So what is a UVP, that unique value proposition? Here's what we say we are. Here's what our competitors say they are. Where it overlaps is shared. But what do we say that no one else is saying? What are we doing that's unique? And trying to explain what that is, because what's happened is we get into this rut of saying the same things, right? We all say these things, small school or location or hands-on learning. And we actually did a mini comp analysis where we showed what our competitor schools were doing with the exact language that they were bringing up as our UVP. So let them present the UVP, show that it could be at any of these schools, and then explain, we can show how we do it differently here through storytelling.
What was the response from the cabinet as you walk them through this context and they lead them through the realization that the UVP is not so distinct at this point?
Well, I think two things we kind of got out of that is that it's okay, that we're saying some of the same things. But with that, it also showed the cabinet how important it is for us to show up. I mean, you think about keyword search. If you're searching for that, we can be really intentional about what kind of language we're using. And in that case, maybe it is the same language so that we are showing up in that search when other schools are talking about it. We do it too. But having some of that depth of storytelling can say, really articulate how Fort Lewis is doing it differently. We're doing it for our unique demographic of student population, So
what do you think is different today? You had the conversations, you brought in the stakeholders, you had a workshop. Now you're in the post period. What's new? What's going to change?
Yeah, I think I think one of the biggest goals for us was just to validate the work of the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we get an influx of story ideas and stuff, to provide some accountability and recognition that we will prioritize, and to lean on us and trust us to prioritize it based off of strategic directives of the strategic plan. And we're going to be intentional about that. So we can't tell every single story, but to help them see, like, this is how we're thinking. And we've got a vision and a guiding light, the guiding light of the strategic directives to keep us on track. And when we have to prioritize, we're on the same page, right? With the initiatives of the institution as a whole, which is why I thought it was really important for a number of my team to be in the room and helping to facilitate, because they're the ones producing the content, right? The videographers, the social media experts, the public relations experts, these people need to be there so that they recognize it's not Anna giving this workshop. I'm not trying to advocate on their behalf. In this case, I am trying to say, hey, we're all got a seat at the table. This is a collaborative effort from our team.
I mean, you're really building a team that is aligned to support strategic priorities, so that when the great idea comes up and the rubber hits the road and we have to make a decision, there's a shared language and understanding about how we make decisions and why. Exactly.
And that provides some accountability too, to each other, to the different divisions across campus. Okay. Yeah, I'm sitting 10 stories. I want to be intentional about what I'm sending and give some context that can be directed back to the strategic plan, because those are the ones that are going to rise to the surface and eventually get told and get fleshed out.
So I'm going to ask you about another great story you shared with me in the past. So you had honed in your team on a story. It was strategically aligned, but initially the creative product just wasn't quite right. And so I'd love for you to tell us about that. How'd you get it back on track? And what was the journey of taking a strategic story from not quite right to, yeah, we got it?
We've got this intern team, and I've told you that they're just rock stars. And that comes a great deal from the leadership and the mentorship of our professional staff too on the marketing team. And we had a student, we give them, with these directions and the UVPs and some of that intentionality behind what are those themes we want to talk about, we'll assign them different passion projects, and they get to build it out the way they want to. They get to build the narrative, they build the story, they do the shooting, they do the post-production editing with a lot of mentorship from our professional staff. And a student worked on this beautiful piece that follows an Indigenous student who came from the Navajo reservation. He's a rancher and is taking some classes around that on campus, but also out at our old fort and working with the ranching operation there. And really wanted to show, like, one of our main themes is you belong here, right? Find your people. We say find your flock because we're the Skyhawks. Find your flock, like find your people. You're going to find your people. So we have this gorgeous, beautiful cinematography, beautiful narration, testimonial coming from this student. And the music is beautiful. It matches the scenic theme of this piece. But none of the video showed this student with other people. He was walking across campus alone. He was the first person in his classroom, and there weren't people sitting close by. There were no clips of him interacting with anyone. And so when you think about the emotion, and when you can line up your theme, and then you convey the emotion, does all of that line up? And in that case, it didn't. And so we needed to go back, and not to the drawing board. It was 90% there, but we need to have footage of this student engaging if we were going to show authentic representation. And sometimes it was probably just a logistical thing, honestly.
Right. Sometimes it's hard to get the full classroom and set up their shots. And
Yeah.
We can meet at this time. Let's go shoot.
The scheduling, when you got, and these are student interns that are learning not only the expertise, the technical aspects, but they're learning the logistical aspects of being marketers on a marketing team. And that's tough. And we're providing some mentorship and support there. But I mean, the value of them walking out with this piece in their portfolio, the value it is for us to have this. Not only was it student produced and student driven, the creativity came from the student. It's really this story of the student who it's about too, that authentic voice of who it's coming from. So it's
What an
really
incredible
special.
So special. And, for students who are really interested in this kind of work, they should be flocking to Fort Lewis. What incredible mentorship and opportunity you're providing.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think one of the challenges with our intern team is, we're challenging them to tell the stories of students that aren't like them. And that is tough because they've got their friends, right? And that's an instant, like they can talk their buddies into doing stuff, come be a model for this photo shoot, come be in this video. They'll do it for their friends and it's really easy. And again, it goes back to that logistics, but to approach a student who doesn't come from the same background, doesn't have the lived experience that you do. And you're challenged with trying to convey an authentic representation of who they are and what their experience is at college. That's tough. It's tough because you've got to put yourself not only in their shoes, but you've got to stand back a little bit and let that person tell the story.
Absolute co-creation. We can have a whole other conversation about this, Anna.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this was an angle. So, I think, authentic co-creation and how to do that in a really respectful way, learning, maintaining curiosity is an incredible opportunity for those students and a skill everyone can work on.
Yeah. And they've got to thicken their skin, right? They've got to be okay with that
feedback.
Feedback. Yeah. I mean, and that is what makes you grow. And that is some of the culture that I create on my team is just take it and give it, be respectful, be honest. But we're all in this for the same goals and we're better for it if we can lean in.
Definitely. All right. Well, on that, what is your advice for other institutions who are trying to create more aligned and effective brand storytelling strategies?
I mean, it just goes back to like leverage the people you're trying to speak to, right? So if you're speaking to donors, pull your donors in and listen to their voices. See what they say. Why are they donating? Why are they inspired by the work of your institution? If you're talking to alumni, pull the alumni that are engaged in your annual giving. See what they said about their experience. Why did they keep coming back? And those are the authentic voices that are going to reach new alumni, new donors. And it's no different than even down to recruiting and retaining faculty and staff. Why are people here? Why are they staying? Why did they come to work for Fort Lewis College? We are working on telling some of that story too. And that's authentic. And so I would say lean into that. Who are the people that you're talking to? Pull them in to help tell that story and let the marketing voice take a back seat.
I love that. Okay, we're going to wrap up. I have a few lightning round questions for you, just so folks get to know you a teeny bit more than they already have. So here we go. What makes a great story?
I think we've already touched on it, but it's authenticity. Authenticity, having the right voices.
What's your favorite story or advertisement of all time?
I love this. I have two. I can't help myself. Okay, so in the 90s, there was a Folgers commercial. And you remember the 90s, the best part of waking up. And
Folgers
the scene, the scene is the kid comes home from college and and the little girl comes down the stairs and he pops open, they smell the coffee, they make the coffee, the whole family wakes up to the smell of coffee and their son is home from college or from his adult life for the holidays or for a visit or whatever. And I saw that as in the 90s, like as a kid in the 90s. And I'm like, wow, that was really moving to me. And I have never forgotten it. And now I'm a parent who is experiencing this where my son comes home from college and it's just Folgers coffee or not. I remember the song and I remember how that commercial made me feel. So that's an emotion. The other one is, I don't know if you've heard of Grip 6 belts.
I haven't.
Okay. You're going to have to look it up.
I'm going to go look it up.
They have I think it's a 4 or a 6 minute video. And if you look at this video all the way through, it is just so funny. There are clips that can be clipped and repurposed. My family watched this. We laugh out loud. We quote this commercial in our normal, like day-to-day lives all the time. And I've bought this belt for anybody that I need a present for, because it's not only a good product, but they did such a good job of storytelling through humor. And humor is a really tough thing to get.
Totally.
So anyway, that's
All right,
another one
grip
to
6 belts.
grip 6 belts. Yep.
What do you predict the future of higher ed marketing and storytelling? Or what do you predict for the future?
Yeah. I mean, I think more and more you're going to find marketing voices taking that back seat and the first person accounts lifted up. That is going to be the sweet spot for storytelling. It's
Love it.
authentic, honest, and impactful.
All right. And last question. What is your mission as a leader?
My mission as a leader is just to make sure my team has a seat at the strategic table. I don't want them to feel like all they do is production work, because they're brilliant. And if you've got a good team who is willing and interested in stepping up and really challenging them, they feel like they are more engaged in the work and they're more committed to it. And they've got a lot more engagement and fulfillment in the work that they do. So I am always looking for places for us to share, to review. That goes back to like reviewing and offering honest feedback, but also giving them a chance to work with me, not for me, but work with me to present, strategic solutions to storytelling. I mean, that's what we're talking about today, but among any number of challenges. And that's where I stand. That I absolutely 100% believe that if you can elevate your team to being strategic partners, that it's just so important to their ability to really show up. So,
Anna, I don't know if you're hiring. I don't think you are right now, but people are definitely going to want to work with you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was super fun. And I just want to give a shout out to the AMA and in the Enrollify network, because those platforms have allowed me to connect with a number of people across the industry of marketing and higher ed. And I just feel like it's such a welcoming environment, and it's creating tons of resources for folks like me and you to do our work well and impactful. Yeah. And to lead our teams. It's just invaluable to me.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Anna, so much. And listeners, join me next week for our final episode of Strategic Storytelling, the art and science of brand narratives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share with a friend. And until next time, keep sharing stories.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.